So that's that on paraphrasal. So IELTS expect you also, if you look at the band descriptors, they will tell you that um, when people overgeneralize a lot, it becomes an issue. So IELTS does not want you not to overgeneralize. Do not overgeneralize. They want you to not overgeneralize. Now, what is overgeneralization? Overgeneralization is like saying that every time a particular thing happens, it has a particular and specific outcome. All right. Now, for example, so say that if government spend money on expansion of roads or expansion of the road networks, then it automatically, or this will give birth to reduction in traffic congestion. That's overgeneralization. Now, it doesn't mean that every time the government does that, there has to be a change in outcome. No. But if you say, if government spend money on road network expansion, this might likely reduce traffic congestion. Then you are not overgeneralizing. I hope you understand me.
Yes.
So if government spends more money on education, this will no doubt bring about a reduction in the number of out-of-school children. That's overgeneralization. But when you don't overgeneralize, it says if the government spends more money on education, this might, or this is likely to, this tends to, or this possibly, or this will probably bring about a reduction in the number of out-of-school children. I hope you understand that's not, NOG is not no overgeneralization, not overgeneralizing. But this is overgeneralizing.
Okay.
So IELTS is expecting you not to overgeneralize. It becomes a crime for which you can be marked down if you overgeneralize. Okay. So now you have no overuse. Do not overuse words. Overuse is using one word more than once, especially quasi devices. So that's why I asked you earlier that you should write as many quasi devices from the internet as possible. Write them in your notes. So instead of using although all the time, you have other words like however, nonetheless, even though, and the rest of them like that. So you have also, especially in this case of emphasis, especially, in particular, particularly, or even. So in that case, you are not overusing a word. Once you use their synonyms, than using one particular word all the time, there's a need to bring in such kind of word. I hope you understand that. So let's talk about no underuse of words. Underuse of words is when you don't use a word correctly. When you underuse a word, that means that's when you don't use the word correctly. That was why I was highlighting the work of one of us last time. And I was saying that the usage of those words that was packed into the essay were not properly used. They're not appropriate. So for example, the man, especially being very learned, has not been able to turn around his knowledge into a life of active prosperity. Especially is wrongly used here. It should be instead of especially, should be despite. The man, despite being very learned, has not been able to turn around his knowledge into a life of active prosperity. So that's on the use of the word. I hope you understand that too. Yeah. So now we talk about punctuation. Punctuation must be in good order. You must use the correct punctuation. This commas where necessary. Use full stop when necessary. And more often than not, in this essay, it is also in essay, it's also very, very important that you make use of your what's it called now? Vital signs, coercive devices, items like relative clause, and the rest of them like that, because it will naturally increase or decrease your use of comma. So it will decrease your use of comma, and then you have a smoother and more advanced what's it called now? Advanced teach write up. So punctuation, proper, accurate, and adequate punctuations must be used when necessary. Now, repetition. IELTS frowns on repetition. They're expecting you to use synonyms instead of repeating words. So that's why I kind of like told you to go ahead to do vocabulary study. IELTS expects that you use synonyms a lot rather than repeating words frequently. Okay, so it's very, very necessary and important to point out the fact that IELTS expects you to use synonyms. So that instead of using repeated words, you don't repeat words, you don't repeat ideas. Just there are sometimes when you repeat ideas, it's because you don't have what to say. Sometimes when you repeat words, it's because you don't know the synonyms of those words. So you've got to be able to expand your thoughts, regardless of whether the question is tough or the question is okay. All right. So whether you're familiar with the question or you're not familiar with the question, you've got to be able to expand your thoughts. Now, note relevant detail. Now, you shouldn't put irrelevant details in your work. No relevant details, irrelevant digressions, and addition of items that do not directly have anything to do with the digression. So here, you should stay away from adding irrelevant details to your work. So in this case, you should just go straight to the point and or elaboration of that particular point. So, number 20, you are expected to use clear referencing and substitution. Use clear referencing and substitution. To avoid repetition, sometimes the following can be used to replace other words. Personal pronouns, when instead of saying demand, every at the beginning of the sentence, referring to the man, you should use personal pronouns, so he and she in case of a female, and demonstrative pronouns like these acts may be referring to a particular action of the government. This action, this process, this idea, this using this instead of having to repeat the words again. These, that, these, those. So they help in helping you to stay away from repetition sometimes. So here is an example. Individuals should work with the government to get rid of indiscriminate dumping of refuse in water bodies and on the roads. As this word is referring to the act of indiscriminate dumping of refuse in water bodies and the roads. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Now let me see. Let's come the habit to come early to class, please, so that we will be able to cover enough ground. Maybe by next time we start using clean on those who come late to class. You know, I'm sure you'll be asking, how even if this one want to beat us, how will he beat us? You know, I'm sure one of these days they will invent virtual cleaning. So that our teachers can use it on people who come late. All right, so these, I hope you understand the paraphernalia here, what I'm just trying to discuss here. Hello. So this is capable of bringing about perennial cases of flooding in urban centers. This is referring to the act of the indiscriminate refuse dumping. So that is that. Then we have clear and good paragraph. Clear and good paragraph. Most of us have this idea of just every sentence we want to write, we jump to the next line. Every sentence we want to write, we jump to the next line. Paragraph is a group of words, a group of sentences that have a main idea. So if you are still talking about one particular main idea, you are not expected to jump to the next line or the next to start another paragraph. Some people have this idea of writing short paragraph and short couple of sentences together in cluster. They write their sentences in cluster. They won't call it paragraph because the idea that is in the previous cluster is also being reflected in the second cluster. So which means that people sometimes, make use of the wrong pattern in doing these things. So paragraphing, you want to write a paragraph, let all the information that has to do with one particular point stay together in the paragraph. All right. And to also talk about the relationship between one paragraph and the other, use your vital signs. Use your coercive device. For example, you can go from, let's say, in addition, starting a paragraph, you can another paragraph say in addition when you know that you want to add more information with more item to the one that has been previously mentioned. If you want to contrast this item or idea to the one that has been mentioned, you can do in contrast, contrastingly, and the rest of them, or on the other hand, and the rest of them like that. So with that, we know we'll be able to